Hi guys, so GCSE English Language AQA Paper 2. So as most of you know, it's wise to start with question 5. This is 50% of your marks, so you should spend 40 to 45 minutes on this question. This is the most important question, of course, and 40% of it is down to your English. So make sure you check your paragraphing, your spelling, your capital usage, and your grammar at the end. Okay, so how do we do it? For June 2023, you're certainly going to be getting an article or a speech. Now, they are basically the same, 95% of your piece. The only difference is, for an article, you would just put a title at the top. And for a speech, you would just start off with something like, "Hi guys, I'm here to talk to you today about such a thing." So introduce it as if you were talking to a group of people. But the body of the piece is basically the same for all these forms. Okay, so how do we do it? So you need to look at the statement and break it into sections. You're going to do a paragraph on each section. So the basic structure we're looking at is this. Paragraph 1, introduction. Now this can be very short. You would just say something like, "I agree or disagree with the statement, and I'm going to explain why clearly with reasoned arguments why this is the case." So you're just saying if you agree or disagree, and then telling the reader that you're going to explain why. If you can get a rhetorical question in that first introductory paragraph, you'll get extra marks for that. So this question is about travel. The rhetorical question could just be something like, "Do you like traveling?" Okay, paragraph 2. You just look at the first section of the statement or pick out a set of words and you're going to talk about them, your opinions on them. Paragraph 3. Pick out the next section of the statement and you're going to talk about those, your opinion on those. Paragraph 4, I recommend looking at the counter-arguments. So you'd start that paragraph with something like, "I'm now going to evaluate the counter-arguments on this issue." And in that paragraph, you're going to talk about the opinions of people who don't agree with you. What is the opposite side of the fence? And how do you counter their point of view? Why is their point of view not as good as yours? So you've done several paragraphs. Your last paragraph is your conclusion. And you could start that with something like, "Having looked at a number of issues today about the topic of," whatever it is, "I would say that the most important things to consider are this." And I would refer back to the points you made in your main piece. So you say something like, "As I have explained, such a thing. As I have discussed, such a thing." So you just refer back to the main points you've made briefly. You're saying, "Yeah, I introduced my piece, I told you my overall opinion, I went into some detail, I looked at the counter-arguments, and I brought it back together, telling you exactly what the key points were and how I arrived at my final decision." So that's a nice 5-paragraph structure for you. What do you actually put in the main part of the piece? Well, students seem to struggle with this, but all you need to do is discuss the issues intelligently with good English. There's no right or wrong answer. As long as you're discussing it intelligently and hopefully using the words in the statement and your English is good, you should get a good mark. Using things like discourse markers, firstly, comma, secondly, comma, additionally, comma, and using conjunctions, although, because, but, however, as, will get you extra marks, as will any higher level vocabulary you can remember. But I wouldn't struggle to do that too much. What I recommend is memorize your structure, 5-paragraph structure, introduction, main body, counter-arguments, conclusion. Try and write intelligently, giving your opinion on elements in the statement, and conclude it clearly. Check your English at the end, because obviously, as I said, that is 40% of your marks. So that is all you need to do for question 5. 2 pages is enough. That is more than adequate to get a healthy grade. Okay, so 45 minutes we've done on that question. That's really crucial. You time yourself. Then you move to question 4. So this is 16 marks. What you need to do for this when you start is give yourself a few minutes reading time. So read the question, read the source, and then to do your actual written part of the answer, you're looking at 20, 25, 30 minutes. I would suggest, unless you've got extra time, 25 minutes. If you have extra time, 30 minutes. So this is probably the hardest question on both papers, but it's not that difficult if you know what to do. For this question, you're comparing something in both texts, and it will always relate to the feelings of the writers about something. So you're going to be looking for words relating to feelings. Now, it's not going to say clearly how the writers felt in the text. It's not going to say, we felt happy or we felt sad. It's going to imply how they felt. So, for example, if they say, it was a rainy, dull, dark day, then obviously that implies they were feeling slightly negative about the day. So, using words like implies or suggests, so the text suggests or the text implies, is going to get you extra marks. You're pulling out the meaning from the text, which is part of the skill you're getting marked on. Can you pull out that meaning that is not directly communicated? You're inferring the answer and using your understanding to understand the implications of the text. Okay, so you're comparing the feelings. The other thing you're doing is you're comparing the methods. So we've got 2 things we're trying to do for this question. So the thing to do for this is get in your mind clearly what you are comparing. This one from 2020 is about the feelings and perspectives of the writer's adventures in the mountains. So it's about their feelings, about their adventures. So I would underline or circle that word so you know what you're looking for. You could write another word off there to perhaps help you understand what you're looking for. Probably keywords there would be, did they enjoy it? Did they feel scared? Were they afraid? Were they inspired? Basically, you're looking for positive or negative impressions relating to that word. So, you get your text, and you're going to go through each one, looking for anything that implies a feeling about their adventures. So, as I said, it's not going to say we were happy or we were sad. It's going to imply something like it was raining heavily, or the night was very dark, or it was cold, or the scenery was beautiful. All of those things imply different feelings. So you're going to go through and look for implied feelings in different parts of the text. Circle them or underline them for both texts. And for each one, you could write, he was inspired, or he was afraid. That's about their feelings. So you're going to circle parts of the text that imply a certain view of how they felt about being in the mountains. You're going to do the same for the other text. Obviously, it won't be about the mountains, but whatever it's about, you're going to circle where it implies a feeling. Enjoyment. Maybe this one is fear. So when you've got 2 or 3, yes, 2 or 3, you're then going to do your comparison. So the basic way you structure your points is you just write source A is different to source B, or source B is similar to source A, or you could write the writer's feelings are similar in source A and source B, or the writer's feelings are different. Put your quotes and then explain why those quotes show they had different or similar feelings. So to repeat that, you're just going to explain why the writers had similar or different feelings using quotes. Now, you could get 2 points, you could get 1. I would aim for 2 comparative points, because then you've got to compare the methods. What does that mean? So to get a grade 4, you do need to refer to the methods they've used. Now, this is just language features, so this should be very easy for most people. Look for the easiest language features in the text. So, for example, you might want to find an example of descriptive language, which is the easiest language feature. You might want to find an example of a simile. Let's say there was a simile here. So all you're going to do is find a language feature in both texts. So let's say there's descriptive language here. Oops. Descriptive language. And then all you're going to do is make a point comparing the methods. So the sentence would be something like this. In source A, the writer uses descriptive language, and in source B, the writer also uses descriptive language. Put your quotes. If you have time, you can explain how using these language features helps to effectively communicate what's in the text. So that's a third step if you have time, where you would say the use of descriptive language enables the writer to communicate, in this case, how cold it was on the mountain. Obviously, your text will be about something else. So just to repeat that, you just need a point comparing the language features, and you could say the writers employ different methods. For example, source A uses a simile, quote, whereas source B uses more descriptive language, quote. If you have time, you can explain how that helps the writers communicate. What do the use of those language features tell us? The simplest way to look at this question, though, is to do 1 or 2 comparative points on their feelings, and then 1 point on the methods. So I recommend 3 points. 2 points comparing the writer's feelings, and 1 point comparing the methods. You don't spend forever on this question. So after 25 or 30 minutes, you need to move on. Okay, so which question do we move on to? Some people would go straight backwards to question 3, language features, because you have just looked at the language features for those texts. I would recommend going to question 2, as this is quite similar to question 4. This is a summary question. So you are meant to read both texts and compare or summarize one element from both texts. Now, it's not going to be the same as the thing in question 4 which you compared, and that's a common mistake. So make sure you don't compare the same thing you did in question 4. So it's going to be something different. This is a relatively short question, 8 marks. So you're only looking at spending 10 minutes if you have normal time, or 15 if you have extra time. You're going to do 2 paragraphs, and in each paragraph you're going to do a comparative point. So in each paragraph you'd write something like, source A says this, whereas source B says this. Or you could say source A is different to source B because it says this, and source B says something else. So you're using words like similar, different, whereas, but. You're showing the differences or the similarities. You're looking for the one thing it asks you about, and that one thing only. So when you've read the question, obviously you go back to the text, and it should be quite quick, this, because you've just read it, and you're going to need to circle something else or underline it or highlight it. So again, whatever you're looking for, you're going to highlight that element for question 2. So you're looking for 2 things in each text. Go to the other text, question 2. That is the point relevant to question 2. I'll circle that one. There's another one there, question 2. And you're going to pair up those points with the points in the other source. So 2 paragraphs where you compare the thing it's asked you to find, and you're going to show the differences or the similarities. But keep it reasonably short, 10 to 15 minutes. You don't want to write loads. Get to the point. Just try and show if they're similar or different with quotes, with evidence if you can. Okay, so 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to move on. Question 3. So we flip back. We no longer have to read 2 documents. We're focusing on 1 document for question 3. It's language features, everyone's favourite. It's going to tell you the lines you need to read. So most people know reasonably well how to do language features. What are the important things to remember? So paper 2, question 3 is 12 marks. So you're looking at 15, 20, 25 minutes. If you have extra time, 25 minutes will be fine. If you've got normal time, you're looking for 17 to 20 minutes, I would say. Just to be accurate, I would aim for 17.5 minutes if you can manage that. But around 17 minutes would be the middle sort of marker you would aim for. Just keep an eye on your time. After this, you've only got 1 question left, so you can probably weigh that up when you're doing the exam. Okay, so what are the easiest language features to use? The text will always have descriptive language. They will always have positive and negative language. There's a good chance there will be a simile in there, and there's probably a 50-50 chance there will be other things like personification, metaphors, maybe even pathetic fallacy, alliteration. But the easiest ones to look for are descriptive language and positive and negative language. Of course, you can get a high grade without signposting the language feature. So you don't have to say what the language feature is. You can just put your quote down and explain why the language is interesting. Now we come to the point where we can understand exactly what you get your marks for. So with what I've just said, it is good to signpost the language features. You would get a tick for that, but you can get a high mark without doing that, because what you get your marks for is the detail of your explanation. Okay, so you pick a word from the text and you're going to explain exactly why this word is so evocative, so brilliant. It has so many different meanings and has different impacts and different shades of colour on the reader. The idea is the writers have chosen specific words in a clever way, and they can have lots of different clever meanings. So you're picking specific words and trying to tell us that you understand exactly why the writer's chosen these words and to explain all the different meanings from those sets of words. So you could theoretically do 1 point that is very, very thorough, 1 quote with an explanation, and get a really high grade. I would recommend looking for 3 points, 3 PE paragraphs. But if you do 2, that is absolutely adequate. So try and get 2 done. If you have time, do 3. But what you need to do is try and get a couple of detailed points down with lots of detailed explanation. All the examiner wants to know is, what do the words mean? The other thing they're interested in is, what effect does the words have on the reader? What effects do the words have on the reader? So what does it mean, and what effect does the words have on the reader? If you can explain those in detail, you're going to get a good mark. So concentrate on your explanation. Okay, so you've spent your time on that, 17 minutes, 20, maybe 25 if you've got extra time. You do the final question. If you time things according to what I've said, you'll have 5 minutes left on this. Now, paper 2 question 1 is more difficult than paper 1 question 1, which is very straightforward. This is not that difficult. All you really need to do is read each statement carefully and then look for those keywords in the text. Now, the kicker is that some of these words are not going to be in the text. What they're trying to do is to see if you can infer again and look for the implied meaning. So, for example, statement A, is it true or false? The statement here says, the climbers were sheltered from the wind. So, it's not going to say in the text, it's unlikely to say, we sheltered from the wind. It might say something like, we hid in a small cave while the weather was bad. Okay, so that's asking you to kind of translate the meaning and discern and infer whether it's true or false. So that's the way to do it. Read each statement and then look for words that are similar, maybe the same words, but unlikely to be. Look for words that are similar in the text. It should be relatively straightforward. Don't kill yourself or get stressed on this question. Most students don't get 4 marks. But if you've got 5 minutes left and you've done the other questions well, you should be feeling confident. So do what you can on it. Okay guys, so that's paper 2. Final points. Bear in mind you are going to get a bit stressed when you do the exam. Nothing is going to go perfectly. So be prepared mentally for that. Some things will go well, some things will go not well. The pass mark, as you know, is just under 50%. So you don't need to do everything perfectly. So don't get completely stressed out if something isn't that easy in the exam. If you see words in the text you don't understand, it's probably wise to skip over those words and pick some different words. I think the best bit of advice, obviously, is revise the method to answer all the questions. And crucially, make sure you know your timings. Believe it or not, timing is one of the biggest reasons students don't pass. They just don't finish. So if you know how to answer all the questions and you know your timings, you should be feeling confident. Okay, good luck everyone.